Welcome back to RoomPack's ResEdChat podcast, a platform to showcase people doing great work and talk about hot topics in residence life and college student housing. So my name is Noah Montague and I use he, him, his pronouns, and today I am your host. As you all know, if you've been listening to my podcast a little bit, I like to say that I am a storyteller by trade and that the stories that I choose to tell and focus on are those that center the student experience and that of residential students in particular, which makes me all the more excited about today's topic in general. I love talking about leadership, so I'm really excited to get to do that today. So with that, I kind of spoiled us, but we're going to be talking about student leadership development today and what that can look like in the residence hall specifically.
Mhm.
In my role currently, I am deeply involved in student leadership development with my living learning community, where I teach different leadership theories and just help students learn about themselves and others as leaders and how they fit in to that space. That said, it really is all of residence life staff's job to look at leadership development and student leadership. And because we all oversee student leaders,
Yeah.
whether it be RAs, whether it be hall councils, whether it be any of those different places, we are working with student leaders actively within the residence halls. So, with that, I am so excited to welcome our guest today because we're going to get to talk about leadership pretty intensely, and I'm excited about that. But I'm going to let them go ahead and introduce themselves.
All right. Hi, y'all. I'm Ayanna Ross. I am an associate director in residence life. I've been working in residence life since my graduate career, so 2018. Yeah, I've really enjoyed getting to know all the different students and professionals that I've worked with over the years. But I would say the development definitely started when I was an RA, and I was an RA back in 2013, first time sophomore year of college. So yeah, I've been doing this work almost my entire adult life.
Yeah. I think about that sometimes too, just how long I've been doing this at this point.
Because the student, I would say the development really started when I was a student,
Yeah,
and realizing that I had an opportunity as an RA to be a part of other people's development.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think that starts us off so perfectly then in we're talking about development, we're talking about student leadership, but what do we mean when we're talking about that? Whenever I start any of these conversations, I like to kind of define, like just give us like a baseline. So what do we mean when we're talking about student leadership in a residential setting to you?
Yeah. And so for me, student leadership can look like what we're used to. It can look like the hall council president or executive board. It can look like a resident assistant who's knocking on your door or doing rounds. But it can also look like that student who likes to show up to who's always super involved and shows up to all the programs, whether it's a building program or it's just their RA hosting a study night. It can look like that student who is hanging out at the desk and wants to get to know everyone who walks through the door. I think that we see student leaders in a lot of different ways, but overall, I think it's that growth, right? That growth that we see from that scared first year student who's like really trying to get out there and get to know what is this campus really going to be like? How am I going to meet my friends? To seeing them stand in their power, make decisions, not second guess themselves, finding who they are. I think that's a part of all of that is a part of student development
Yeah.
and being a student leader.
Yeah. I'd agree completely. I think for me, something that stood out in your answer is that like participation that you talked about, like being an active part of the community. Because when we think
Mhm.
about student leaders, it's so easy to be like the RAs in the community, those are the student leaders. But the student who's coming to the program regularly is actively choosing to engage with that community, whether or not they think they're doing so as a leader, like that participation is leadership in so many ways that we're not really actively thinking about. And I know they're not either because I have
No.
to grill it into them that they're acting as leaders when they choose to participate. But I think about that a lot with that space and how students are choosing to participate and what maybe is making them not in
Mm-hmm.
those
The
spaces.
engagement. We've
Yeah.
definitely seen engagement shift. And
Yep.
people like to say that it was COVID, but
Mm.
if you were doing this prior to 2020, then you know that the shift actually started around 2018,
Yeah.
2019. And so COVID wasn't the reason, but it definitely highlighted some of the issues that we experience in terms of student engagement. um, and our ability to develop student leaders.
Yeah. COVID always feels like a very easy, like as humans, we look for something to blame
Oh yeah.
the thing. And COVID feels like a very easy way to go about that, as if that engagement wasn't changing before that, and as if
Mm-hmm.
students weren't choosing to engage in different ways before the pandemic hit.
Yeah. And to be honest, I think students were asking for more virtual, more grab and go things prior
They
to.
were.
And COVID was actually the catalyst
Hmm.
for a lot of us getting our senior leadership to allow us to do what students were already asking for.
Hmm. Yeah. I think COVID was so interesting in that capacity because it kind of gave us that argument
Oh, yeah.
in a way that maybe we shouldn't have needed because students were asking for it, to your own point.
Mm-hmm. But I think we also have to acknowledge that those of us who are in these entry level positions, because I
Yeah.
was in an entry level position at the time that COVID hit, I was in the first 6 months of my first full time role
Hmm.
when everything shut down. And what I can say is that for me, we experience, and I've been at a few different institutions now, and what I've experienced is the people who are in those entry level roles are so far removed from the people
Yeah.
who are in those senior leadership roles. And those people in those senior leadership roles, it's been so long since they were in an entry level role that they don't actually understand sometimes
Hmm.
why the advocacy is happening. And so it sounds like your live-in staff is whining, but they're not.
Hmm.
They are advocating and they're reflecting back to you the complaints and the issues that they're experiencing from their students.
For sure.
So,
I feel I was a first semester grad student when COVID hit, so I feel that pretty much. I had my zone and that's where I stuck during
mm-hmm,
that time. But thinking about that leadership development, as we've talked about it so far with students like engaging and participating in the different roles they can have,
mm-hmm,
how do you see that type of leadership development differing
mm-hmm.
in the residence halls as compared to maybe like a student org or in the academic setting? How do you see that differing?
Yeah, I would say that was really highlighted for me probably in my previous role when I was a resident director. And for me, what that looked like when I'm talking to my colleagues who were in like maybe Office of Black Student Development or in sorority and fraternity life, what they are doing is crucial work, right? They're doing trainings, they're doing workshops, they're helping students plan programs, right? But when you are a resident director, when you are working with resident assistants, you are not only working with them on programming and developing, budgets for these things, but you're
Mhm.
also working with them on creating boundaries,
Yeah.
not only personally, but professionally. Like, I can't tell you how many RAs, like, I've walked through a difficult personal time, whether it was something that they were struggling to like be honest with their parents about, or if it was something that they were struggling with in a friendship or with another RA. Like, it's a lot of coaching, I would
Mhm.
say, within what we do as residence life professionals. So we're seeing them, yes, at their best when they're so excited about their program and their good grades and their XYZ, but we're also seeing them when they're coming in and somebody just broke their heart.
Yeah.
And we're also seeing them when they've had their absolute worst day. And I think that is what really differs from other areas. It's like we are their home
Yeah.
for the majority of the year. And
Mhm.
so we get to see them in ways that not everyone on campus gets to see them. So there are things that sometimes we know about them that
Mhm.
we didn't ask to know, but because we have a one-on-one with them every week or bi-weekly, we just have more access. And I think we create spaces where, or we at least try to create spaces where they feel comfortable
Yeah.
unloading and talking to us about what's on their plate so that we can help them navigate all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. That brought up a couple thoughts for me, particularly two things that I say to my RAs as we go through the year, one of which being there's a really big difference, and you touched on this a little bit, between what I call like head work and heart work.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we are the heart work part of
Mm-hmm.
campus in that And the other thing that I say is that anything that can happen to a human being can happen in a residence hall.
Uh-huh.
And
I've heard
because
that
of that, yeah,
over.
because of that, we not only have to be prepared to do that, but have to work with RRAs through those things. And students learning who they are is an integral part of leadership development as well, and like navigating that space. So this last year, I helped one of my students through, he was having like a like a conflict of faith. And
Mm,
that became our one-on-one and
yeah.
hour-long conversation in which we were going to be talking about, okay, what are we doing for the community? What are we doing? How's the program coming? And instead, it was a very different conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a crucial conversation to have. One, because this is a student that now felt comfortable having this conversation with me.
Mm-hmm.
And two, because that's just what he needed to talk about.
That self-discovery is a
And
huge
yeah,
part of growing
mhm,
as a leader,
for
period.
sure. Yeah.
Self-awareness is a key component of being a good leader. And so, as we're developing student leaders, we want them to be discovering things about themselves. We want them to be questioning the
Hmm.
things that they knew previously. And so, like, I think it's so amazing that, like you said, I think it just highlights the
Yeah,
depth of the relationships we're able to build.
definitely.
Yeah.
It's unique in that capacity because what you brought up is that they live here and
Mm-hmm.
we see them when they are excited about the thing they're planning, and we see them when they are awake at 2 a.m. because they have a final the next day that they forgot about. And
Mm-hmm.
it's all of those different aspects of a person play into how they lead in the halls differently than when they're showing up to their club meeting
Oh,
after
yeah.
class.
Yeah. You can only hide your truth for so long,
Mm-hmm.
is kind of the thing that I often talk to my mentees about, of like, find your truth and start living in that as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. And we get to be a part of helping them feel comfortable in that truth in a different way, just being
Mm-hmm.
in residence life.
Yeah.
I love my job.
Yes. And I think that's something that is important to say. Like,
Yeah.
yes, we have heavy things that we deal with, but there's a reason that there are res lifers. There's a reason why there are people who've never worked in another functional area. I've never worked in another functional area.
Mhm.
And it's because even when residence life is the worst, and there have been times when I've worked at other places and I've been like crying at my desk at 12 a.m. And
There are
I'm
times.
Yes, there are times when I've been at my desk crying at 12 a.m. because RA training is about to start and I
Mhm.
need to get all of my things together. And I'm willing to be there at 12 a.m. because not only because I'm willing to do what's necessary so that my RAs have a good experience, but
Yeah.
because I'm willing to collaborate with my other live in professionals and make sure not all of us have to be up at 12 a.m.
Yeah.
Only one of us have to suffer tonight.
Hmm. Be there for each other.
Yes.
Totally. Hmm. Well, with that, I think that going into my next question that I have, we've touched on theory a little bit, just tangentially within this conversation. But how, if at all, do you see theory showing up in residential leadership development and how you go about it?
Yeah. I would say theory shows up everywhere in almost everything that we
I
do.
knew that would be the answer too, but I wanted to ask it all the same.
I would say, as someone who was a psychology undergrad,
Yep.
everything we do is involved. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
everything, whether it's on how people learn, whether it's on identity development, whether it's, just meeting people where they're at. Like, it is a lot that goes into what we do. And I think people talk a lot about, people don't like challenge and support, but like
Yeah,
challenge and support is a lot of what we are challenging their old ideas and supporting them and becoming new versions of themselves.
for sure.
Like we're doing that with ourselves, with our supervisors, with our supervisees. We are constantly questioning. And I think that questioning comes from a place of wanting better,
Yeah.
right? Of wanting people to feel supported, feel like they have what they need and feel confident in who they are so
Hmm.
that they can persist to graduation.
Definitely.
So, yeah, everything we do is theory,
Hmm. I completely agree
theory to
in
practice.
so many ways that everything that we do is theory to practice in partnering with students in their work, being learning partnership and like exploring that space and being able to be there with them as they figure the things out. Like in it of itself is theory. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
as you know, like in my own role, like I have the opportunity to specifically teach theory to students
Yes.
so that they learn some leadership theories.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ones that we've already talked about a little bit is the social change model of leadership development,
Yes.
um, that very specifically highlights a concept of citizenship as a part of what it means to be a leader. That meaning being an active participant in the place that you live in order to create positive change in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And it refutes a lot of volunteerism and like going to neighborhoods to fix things for
Mm-hmm.
that neighborhood. It is, no, be in where you are,
Be
learn the
so
needs of your
present.
community, be present
Mm-hmm.
in your community so that you can learn what it needs.
Mm-hmm.
And that in and of itself is how I work to teach that leadership in
Yeah.
my space as well.
And
And
I
I wish
feel
more
some of the
people
most
did, and that's not even me patting myself on the back. But
no, but
uh,
that's like I think if you're going to be effective in a
yeah.
role like this, right?
Hmm.
If your job is to be the resident director of
Hmm.
a community, then you should be asking what are the needs
Of the
of this
community.
community.
Hmm.
You should not be coming up with solutions for problems that no
Hmm.
one has said is a problem. You're changing things just to change things.
Hmm.
And I've always been a strong advocate for whenever people often will come to me and be like, "Oh, can you tell us like what do you think how do you think black students will feel about this?"
Hmm.
Go ask them.
Hmm.
I can't be the
Why do
voice,
you have to be that
right? I
spokesperson?
can't be the voice for black students. I
Yeah.
need you to ask a black student
Hmm.
in the black scholars community
Yep.
what their experience is and why they're not engaging with your materials.
Hmm.
Because I can tell you what I feel the answer is, but that doesn't make it the right answer.
The amount of people in my time who have asked like, what does the queer population here want? I'm like, I let let's bring them in to talk to them.
Bring them to the table.
I'm like, yes, I'm openly queer as a professional, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't go here. I'm like I'm not a student here. Like I don't know what I'm
Yes.
looking for.
I don't know how many times
Do.
I've said I don't
Um,
go.
mhm. And I do
Yes.
objectively because I'm
Yes.
very involved in that space and like I
Mm-hmm.
advise organizations, but it's like to make the changes that students want to see, we need to be asking the students, and therefore we need to be empowering them to use their voices to lead their own communities. And
Yes.
that's our job to me.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And
Not
whenever a
to
student's
tell
like,
them
"Oh, I
to.
hope I'm not bothering," it is 100% my job
Hmm.
to be here for you, to coach you through this, to
Yep.
provide resources. Not a bother.
Hmm.
It is 100% our job.
Never a bother.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling, for
Literally. Thank
asking.
you for giving me something to do other than
Mhm.
to
Thank you for giving me something to do. I don't want to do my paperwork.
at all.
I don't want to send my 15th email of the hour. Please tell me how
My
I can help
list
you.
is looking like this, but I would love a yap session, please.
Please. It's so much more. I mean, it's more fun for me, but
But
it
I think a
also
lot of
more
times,
fulfilling.
yes. And I think a lot of times that the connection that a lot of professionals are looking for and they feel like that engagement they feel like they don't have, like the follow-up question is how often are you logging out of your computer and
Yep.
just being available?
Hmm.
How often are you, as the person living in your community, walking around and just knocking on a door?
Yeah.
Not for any particular reason, just to say hi,
Just to connect,
just to connect.
just to
That
be
building that
present in the
rapport is what,
community.
yes, that you need to be a part of the community so that
Yep.
the community recognizes you and feels safe and supported
Hmm.
enough to actually bring problems to you.
Exactly. So that they feel safe to
Mm-hmm.
be those leaders in the community.
Literally, they have to feel safe in order to feel like they can lead in that space or even engage in that space.
Hmm. Because why would they if they don't?
Exactly.
Hmm.
Would you?
No.
Like,
And
yeah,
I've been in many communities where I didn't feel safe to participate, so I didn't.
yep,
And I'm
yep,
very privileged to have that where I am now, as well as like trying to be able to give that to the students that I
mhm,
serve, I think is pretty crucial. Uh,
yeah.
but I think that kind of goes in. You're setting me up perfect with these questions. I don't know. It's almost like you knew what they were going to be ahead of time. But um, but with that, talking about identity and talking about student belonging in that space, what role does identity play in how students experience leadership in residence halls? And
Mm,
how maybe can we be more intentional about growing those inclusive leaders in
yeah.
our halls?
When I think about it, I really think about those quote unexpected leaders, right? And unexpected leaders are just people who aren't cis white men.
Yep.
Like
Hmm.
unexpected leaders, that is what they are. They are people that no one expected to lead. Everyone can be a leader in their own lane, right? So why, so for me, I think that leadership development, for me as a Black woman, it has really looked like owning the parts of my personality that I know will be misinterpreted no matter what I do. I think it has looked like self awareness and self reflection. It has looked like actively seeking out constructive feedback
Yeah.
and applying that feedback. It has often sometimes looked like just being frustrated and upset with a process and then trying to identify why,
Hmm.
right? And if that frustration is coming from a place of, I was not considered in this decision and this decision directly impacts me,
Yeah.
that is one of those things as a leader that makes me feel like I have no power.
Hmm.
So if I'm in a position to lead or I'm in control of a project and then someone above me or laterally is like pooping on my project and on my process and how I'm going about doing it, but they're not contributing to the process,
Hmm.
what am I supposed to do with that?
Like, how
And
are you
so as
supposed
a
to
leader,
respond
I have to
to that?
reflect on
Hmm.
one, why are they doing that? Two, why is it bothering me? And three, what can I do about it?
Yeah.
And so for me, I like to say that I'm solution oriented, but not in like a toxic positivity way,
Hmm.
but more so in a way of I would like to get out of the mistake phase as quick as possible.
Yeah.
I want to get to the knowing so that I can get to the informing, so I can get to the doing.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, thank you for that. I think for me, I think so much about listening when it comes to these spaces, and that is in my own identities as a white man and a queer man in that space, and like what that looks like, and where I can provide additional voice to students and like give that space. But also, I view this conversation in particularly so important in challenging other white students in my community and my spaces and being able to be a part of that challenge, um, and empowering like other students to be able to like have that voice and be a part of the community and thinking about like queerness and particularly I find that other students in the LGBTQ community like find me
Mm,
on campus like that
uh-huh,
happens, and
mhm.
I'm
It's like
sure
they seek
that
you
you've
out. They find.
experienced similar for the Black students on campus.
Mhm.
Um, and like being that role model is very important to me, but also like setting those boundaries is very important to me, which then empowers them to be able to set those boundaries as well.
Yeah.
Um, Particularly in like my unexpected feels like the wrong word, but maybe unintentional, like heavy involvement in Miami's LGBTQ community. Um, I have learned and watched, and from my own experience, like within leadership development, queer students are so often just trying to survive.
Mhm.
They never get to the point,
The
and I
thriving
don't like
part.
being in a detriment mindset, but it's like I have to make it through high school. I just have to get out of here and then I can be out and then I can be safe.
And I can be my own person.
Can be my own person, not even thinking about I can be a leader, I can be me.
Hmm.
And that takes a lot of time
Hmm.
in my
You have
own.
to have space to rest,
Yeah,
right? Like,
like
and
that's
when
big
you're
stuff.
constantly thinking about your survival, do
Mhm.
you have space to rest and imagine
Yep.
when you're just trying to survive?
Like when you're just trying to survive, you're not thinking about how can I lead. You're
Hmm.
thinking about how can I
Make it from this
make
minute to the
it.
next.
Yeah. And that's hard. And COVID exacerbated that too in different ways. And the times are exasperating that in different ways. But I think it is crucial for residence life staff to be thinking about all of that
Mm-hmm.
when we enter into the space because all of our students experience leadership differently. Some have never thought about it.
But I think we also have to think about one of those things when I think about leadership development is one thing that and it's not that I never thought about it, but like I didn't consider myself a leader for a
Mhm.
very long time. I
Me
was a
too.
whole leadership intern
Hmm.
in college and I would not say that I was a leader on campus. I was someone would not say that about myself, but other people would have and did,
Yeah.
right? And I think one of the big reasons why is because I was marketed that this is what a leader is. This is the credentials of a leader. This is people listen to leaders. I never felt listened to. I never felt heard. I never felt like people cared about what Ayanna specifically was going through or had to say, right? And so when I switched that narrative, and I remember talking to someone maybe a year ago, and just like my understanding of power and leadership now is you cannot take it from me because you did not give it to me.
Yeah.
And I am a leader in every room I step in, and that's just because that's who I am as a person.
Hmm.
Because I think I'm strategic and I go about things in a way that show care, but also we're gonna do things that make sense,
Hmm.
right? And so I see myself as a leader now in a way that I didn't then, because then I was thinking about everything that was working against me
Yeah.
and why no one was giving me opportunities to be a leader instead of seeing myself already presently leading, advocating, being a person that others could rely on and a person that other people knew was going to go into those spaces and speak truth
Yeah.
no matter how uncomfortable. And so that is a part of my professional brand. And I'm sure that there are people who are going to see this who know me who are going to be like, yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense.
that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that like the you talking about leadership in that way and like leader as an identity is
Mm-hmm.
so interesting, particularly with students and particularly with marginalized students and like what when we in the way that we have established leader and leadership and the image of a leader being that cis white man that you're talking about and
That charismatic leader. Not
charismatic, like
every leader
going
is a
for it.
charismatic leader.
And one, it creates that image that is the only person that can be a leader, but it also like creates the image that that person is the only one that can bestow leadership
There it is. Mm-hmm.
on somebody else.
And it's like, unless someone with this positional
Mhm.
power says you're a leader,
You're not.
then
As if every theory and every practice and every space just says you have to be a part of the community and actively participate in order to be a leader. But we're not listening to that.
no. We're going with the social definition,
Yeah.
right? And it's more so, and I think a lot of times, which I don't think it's incorrect, people think
Yeah.
about leaders as the people who inspire feeling, positive or negative, right? They think about those people who spark those super emotional responses. But that's not always a leader. Sometimes a leader is the person who plants the seed
For
and
sure.
makes someone else do something they wouldn't have normally done, like go to a program.
Yeah.
All you had to do was invite your roommate,
Mhm.
and now you, your roommate, and your whole floor are a part of this kick-ass community
Mhm.
who have just you're connected and you're never gonna part, and these are your best friends for the next 10 years, and it's because you took a risk and you asked some random girl to go to lunch or to go to a program. You know,
You made the effort.
you made the effort.
You
And I
tried.
think that's what leadership really is. It's making the effort.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, I guess with that, we've talked like that, the bit we've gotten pretty big with the
Mhm.
conversation as we went about it. But what maybe are, to bring us back down for a second, some practical ways that supervisors in residence life, whether it be resident directors, whether it be folks in positions like yours, can foster that leadership development at the university?
Yeah. I think for me, what I have found effective is conversations like this.
Yeah.
Truly.
Hmm.
Like creating space and time in your schedule so that 1, 2 hours a week, you're able to genuinely just say, you know what, I'm going to have my door open. I'm going to go out into the community. And my goal is to talk to one, two, however many people that I've not talked to before.
Hmm.
We had this thing, a part of our residential curriculum at a previous institution where we had to talk to 5 students that we hadn't talked to before within a residential curriculum block. And honestly, it's pretty easy to do. Um, Especially where we were conduct officers, sometimes that was I was able to fold that into some of the just lower level conversations that I was having. And I think using, if you're someone who is in a position where you are having regular meetings with students, using those first 5 minutes, regardless of your meeting with a student, for rapport building.
Hmm.
Ask them what they have going on. If you don't know their major, that's a good start. What are they studying? What's on their plate? What are they excited about? Like really genuinely make an effort to get to know them. In terms of supervision and people that I supervise, in terms of development with those folks, I have found that using one on one time to do focused training has been really helpful. So, I'm going to use this example and I really hope she sees it. But I have a person that I worked with who was an RA. I worked with her as an RA for a year. She was an amazing RA, but she was someone who had kind of a high pitched voice. She was around my height, so about 5 foot. She was very petite, and so people did not take her seriously.
Yeah.
And so when she was approaching situations, oftentimes students would be disrespectful to her, dismissive to her. And so we would use our one on ones to role play.
Hmm.
I was like, okay, I'm going to be the student. I'm going to give you a hard time. Like, you're going to come in this office and you're going to give me a noise complaint. That is the goal. You
Hmm.
are going to give me a noise complaint and you're going to follow all the procedures and you're going to walk away not feeling impacted, not crying. Like, this is the goal of the training, right? And so we did this a couple times. Sometimes we would get out of the office, we would do walk and talks down by the beach. And what I found is not only did I get to know her personally, and we're able to keep in contact now. I've not even worked at that institution in well over a year now. She became an assistant hall director this year.
Oh,
And
that's so
so
exciting.
I think that for her and for me and for us, taking time to really like tell her, I know that you can do this. And not just saying it, but giving her the tools.
Yeah.
Yes, she had her behind closed doors training, as all the RAs did, but that was not sufficient for her. She needed to understand, like, from me, how would I approach it? Because I also was a short Black woman approaching situations where people would not take me seriously.
Mm.
And some of it is your tone, some of it is your face, some of it is the way that you're going about it. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to be here. And so some of it is just the way that you carry yourself in those situations. And so I'm happy to say that, she was able to grow a lot over our time together. And it's because she wanted to. It's
Yeah.
because she set a goal for herself to feel more confident and she wanted to be the president of a student organization and da 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 da. And so the things that we were working on were to get her there. And so making sure that you create space for your supervisees or for students in general to say, this is what I want. And when you have the time, when you have the skills, offer your time, invest in them.
Hmm. Yeah. I completely agree. And I don't know that I could have said that better, but I also hope she was listening. That would be really cool if she's here. But I think the only thing that is going on in my mind right now is, again, that listening piece
Mhm.
of everything, like creating that space you shared in one-on-ones. And if you were meeting with students regularly, creating that time to get to know them is so important. And I think it is something that we don't do enough.
Yeah.
Um, Particularly, I think about, I have a similar story. I had a student a few years ago while I was in grad school who was an RA, who I took a lot of time to get to know her and her major, but also the why
Hmm.
behind her major. She was an inclusive special education major. I learned about her sister and her family and like why those decisions were made and where that passion came from. Um, she ended up becoming a graduate student in residence life at another school, in student affairs and higher education program, and now is working full time in the field as well. And that isn't to say that every conversation where we invite a student to tell us about themselves will lead to them joining the field,
But
but it empowers them to ask those questions about why do I want to do this thing?
yeah,
Like what is it that I want to do with my life and what is it that I want to do while I'm here?
yeah,
And I think about that a lot as it relates to like I've seen some professionals like in my life will be like almost offended when a student tells them that something was wrong or that like they
yeah.
did something wrong
It
or
becomes
that
personal.
the school did something wrong or that something is wrong. When in reality, that's a student that is comfortable enough with you
Hmm.
to advocate for themselves. Like saying something is wrong is self-advocacy.
Yeah,
And I think that the tangible advice, maybe the biggest piece would be to encourage that. Like students should be telling us when things can be better.
yes.
And we should be inviting that,
Hmm.
not telling them, no, we know what we're doing, just move
Because
on.
we don't know everything. And I think
No.
the more that we as professionals, particularly within higher ed, can admit that we don't have the formula,
Yep.
then we can invite students and community members to tell us how we can better serve our community.
Yeah. I completely
And
agree.
the students are our community. Like we are, that is what we're here for. And I think sometimes there's an internal thing that people have about striving for the title, the raise, the whatever. It keeps them from seeing their true purpose,
Yeah.
and it keeps people stagnant because if you're not because you don't feel like you're getting the recognition you deserve, you're going to stop investing in your students.
Hmm.
That seems counterproductive.
Yep.
But I see it happen, and I've been that person who felt undervalued and felt like I'm gonna start taking me away from these people, like they don't deserve me. But that didn't serve me. That didn't help me. It only made me feel worse because I was not living up to the potential of who I knew I was as a person and as a professional.
Yeah. And if we're not doing that, how are we supposed to empower students to do that?
Correct. So again, I think it goes back to that self-awareness piece. Like we have to be aware of our biases, our blind sides, and where we still have space to grow.
For sure. This was fun.
Yeah, I really like this.
Oh man. Well, with that wraps up our time today. I think that ended on a pretty good point too, so I'm happy about that. But Ayana, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you had fun as
I
well.
did. I really did. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining. And thank you all for joining us on today's episode of ResEd Chat. If you have an idea for a topic or a person that you would like us to have on the show, please let us know by reaching out to RoomPact. But until then, keep taking care of yourselves and have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.